this message of not to, it's really would be looking at what your is not your true nature. We could say what you're not. Yeah, that's all we can. That's all that can be seen here. So, being reality ourselves, as Ramana would say, if you're being that, then seeing it or obtaining it wouldn't make sense because you're already that. Mhm. So that would put all of the focus essentially on what is looking to get what you already are, or what is trying to become reality. Because that would be unreality if you are reality, obviously. So, whatever then is trying to get reality or obtain reality mustn't be you, essentially. Yeah. So, in this, that would get negated. Now, the thing is, most people are identified as what is trying to obtain reality. Maybe they haven't heard these ideas, or the head tries to grab the message of not to and distorts it a lot. So that can often happen too. Yeah. Mm. Kind of, it ends up. I end up seeing it like this sometimes. People will say that they want to know the truth, that they're in search of the truth. Yeah. So in this message, or the logic of Advaita or not to, you are the truth now. Yeah, you're not going to become that. So then there's people would say, well, I want to know the truth. Now this is the thing. The head is what's saying that. You know, the sense of individuality is what's saying, I want to know the truth. But that sense of individuality doesn't want to know the truth, because then it would be completely negated, yeah? The head, the sense of individuality, or the mental system, wants to know its truth. So it wants to be reinforced, essentially. The thought patterns and ideas of it want to be reinforced. And when they don't get reinforced, a lot of people kind of scurry off and they go find something that satisfies the head's craving to be reinforced. Yeah. But for a lot of people, this mental situation has become very uncomfortable. And yeah, when they go to search for the truth, and that begins to become a very heavy endeavor for them, they really only see that the head keeps failing. And in that is the beauty of it. Because they are the truth that they're looking for. So what's looking for can't find it, yeah? Because the mental system is trying to objectify the truth, let's say, or objectify awareness, and it's not an object, it's not a thing. So when people are saying, oh, I want to find the truth, most of the time that's the head, the sense of individuality, and really it's saying, I want to know the truth that I agree with. Yeah, because the truth would be that the head that's saying, I want to know the truth, is a non-existent thing. It comes and goes. It's a non-permanent entity. And it's the head is taking itself to be permanent as a body, yeah? It's taking itself to be an individual, permanent thing. And the head would call that me or you, yeah? Me or I. So when that I says it wants to know the truth, it really wants to just reinforce its idea of the truth. Because when it meets the logic of non-duality, it flips it. This is kind of the beauty of the not two thing. It flips it. The head says, I want to know the truth. And then this message would say, well, you're not the truth and you can't know the truth. That's a big relief for a lot of people if they're under the weight of the mental system, yeah? Especially through a ton of seeking. If they've spent many, many years seeking and are seemingly failing, not getting what they're looking for, it would be nice to see that the mental system is part of the untruth, let's say. Yeah? So really in these talks, we're just looking at all the different ways that duality arises, or the different ways that the head can mislead experience. How the head's understandings would be misunderstandings, essentially. So that would be one of them. When the mental system is saying, I want to know the truth, what it's really usually saying is, I want to reinforce the truth that I believe. I want to reinforce the beliefs that I have. Yeah? Okay. That would be good to know. Because a lot of people, I feel like they're looking for the truth. Hmm. So they might be getting misled a lot by the mental system. Because if you're identified as it, you're essentially under the direction of its beliefs and its core beliefs and ideas and habit patterns. Yeah. And this would be one of them. The head always wants to become a not head. The sense of individuality wants to become not individual, and it can't do it. But it's going to keep trying over and over again. Yeah, this is like one of the movements. The body wants to become a not body, in a way. It can never obtain that because its limitation is to this dualistic nature in the phenomena, yeah? So the body can't become a not body, but it keeps trying. And if you're identified with the body, then you're seemingly trying and seemingly always failing, never getting to what you want to be or the peace you're looking for or something. Yeah. Because the sense of individuality, or the head, for instance, can't turn quick enough to see it, to see what you are, because it can't catch it. The head can never, the mental system can't catch now, essentially. It's just past future, yeah? It can't like grab onto the nothingness or the emptiness of now. So when the head is in this super dark place of I'm never going to be present, and that is arising in presence. You are the presence, which is present to the idea that you're not present. And the idea that you're not present is coming from what you're not. So it would be negated. There it is. All the ideas of I'm stuck in the past or I'm stuck in the future are happening in the space of presence, which would be now. So what's not happening? What's firing in the mental system? What's not going on right now is happening in the space of right now. If you're identified with the mental, you're seemingly never here. Yes? If you negate the mental, there's nowhere else you can be but here. This is it. Right. So there's listening going on to all the contents of experience. Now the thing is, the habit pattern is to listen to the head. Because you and I give everything all the meaning that it has. So if that mental system is taken to be you, because it's suggesting that there's a you there that it's arising to, if it's suggesting that and you listen to it, you're seeing from the mental system. So whatever it presents to you is taken to be your thought, and then you are moving with that thought as if it's true. Despite the fact that the thought is probably about the future or the past. So this is how we get bound to that mental system. And then we're getting driven by what Ramana will call the false god. Yeah? Or in recovery, they say you have to stop playing God. Well, if you see that you're not small less self, then that small less self keeps playing God, but you're not going with it. Yeah? So there's listening, but there's not listening to it. That's the thing. That removes the ability for self, small s self, to drive life or try to interpret and direct life, which would be a misunderstanding of life. So as always, if there's questions or something, just chuck them in the chat, and maybe they can move the thing you put on the record, the needle. Oh man. So I'm not doing a music thing today because my gear is broken, but the message of Advaita really is music to the ears, yeah? Because, if you don't see that you're not the mental system, you're essentially living completely under its direction. So when the head says, I want to know the truth, and then it hears something that it doesn't like, and it goes, oh, that's not the truth, you can't do that. You're now under that, yeah? So that would probably misdirect you away from, yeah? So if you're identified as the mental system, then whatever it presents, you are under its direction, essentially. You are under the dictatorship of the mental system. Or some teachers would say it's like slavery, essentially, through the identification with that mental system. It presents ideas, you take those ideas to be yours, so you give the head the meaning, and then the head takes you off on whatever interpretation. In my experience, it doesn't matter how obscene that interpretation is. If you're identified as the thinker of those thoughts, it doesn't matter how obscene the story is, you take the story to be true. And then off that story will take you. Wherever it's going to take you. Because the thing is, there is no self. So it's a mistaken movement to take ourselves as the thinker of the thoughts that are coming up. That would be a misunderstanding. There is no thinker because there is no self and there is no doer. There's doing happening, but there's no doer thereof. Yeah? In the center of it, there's no doer thereof. So it would be a misidentification, in a way, to be identified with the body and the mind. And it's relative. The body and the mind are in relation to everything else, except they don't think it's so. The body is in relation to everything that's going on. Everything else knows that except the body. The body thinks it's independent. Yeah? And it walks around with this idea of its independence. And it's not independent. So that would create a lot of friction in life, yeah? Yeah. All right. Any questions or anything, please write in the chat. Otherwise, I think we'll read something from Ramana, which I meant to read the other day, but I never got to it. So maybe we'll hit on that today. I think this is the last thing that Ramana wrote. The last verses. Shri Bhagavan. And it's called 5 Verses on the Self. Of course, Ramana, when he says self, he means like the ground of being or your true nature. So I think maybe I'm just going to read a few of these verses. Good. So I'm going to start with the second one here, I think. So Ramana says, one ever is the self, the big S self, meaning your true nature, awareness, Buddha nature, whatever you call it. So he starts this verse to one ever is the self. So he doesn't say that one is going to become the self, or one used to be the self and then lost it and then comes in and out of it, yeah? The feeling of being in and out of awareness would not be you, yeah? Because that would be a duality, that movement. Some days I feel super enlightened and then other days I feel like trash, let's say, yeah? That movement, the days that you feel enlightened are as much not you as the days you feel trash. That movement, or what thinks it feels it's in and out of your nature, yeah, that mustn't be you. Because he is saying one ever is the self. So one always is the self. And then he says, to ask oneself, who and whereabouts am I, is like the drunken man's inquiry, who am I and where am I? So obviously Ramana talks about who am I, yeah? Something comes up in your experience. Who does that arise to? Me or I? And then you would hit that with who am I? So who or what is that I, yeah? Now he's saying who and whereabouts am I is like the drunken man's inquiry, who am I and where am I? My understanding of that is sometimes he would say people would use who am I like a mantra, where they just repeat it. That's not the point of who am I. Yeah. You ask who am I, the I which is asking and the I which is being asked, so you can see there the two-ness of it, the duality, negate each other with the who am I, yeah? So who's seeing the thought? I am. Well, who am I? So there's a sense of I asking a sense of I, who am I? And that negates both of them. So there's this pause there, as they would say in recovery. You are that pause, essentially. So after that, something else might come up and then you inquire again. But he's saying, if you keep going, who am I, as a mantra, a repetition, who am I, who am I, who am I, it's like a drunken man's inquiry, meaning he just keeps talking. It's the guy at the bar who just keeps talking all the time, yeah? Right. The other side of it, I feel, in my experience, is once you see that that I is a non-existent thing, inquiry only inquiry only reinforces the sense of individuality, or reinforces that I in a way. Yeah, so it would just be better to move to negation. So as soon as anything pops up in the screen, you negate it as not your nature. Yeah. You don't deny it. You don't try to fight it. You just negate it, that it's not your root nature. That's all. So one ever is the self. Not one is going to become the self. Because really practice and things, spiritual practices, let's say, are to turn down the volume on the body and the mind. Yeah. Once that volume is turned down a little bit, you move to inquiry. Because that's what Ramana would say, that's really the only thing that works, yeah? That's the only thing that which would give you the drop of relief in a way. Because one ever is the self. So if you keep practicing and practicing to become the self, what is trying to become the self is not you. The head is claiming those practices. The head is claiming to be the meditator, or this and that and the other thing. So one ever is the self. You are what you're looking for. Being, reality, ourselves. Right. So then he moves on to the next verse, verse 3 of this. The body is within the self. The body is within the big S self. And yet one thinks one is inside the inert body. The body is within the self. So again, it's not the recovery small S self, it's big S self. So your nature. The body is within that. Or in like Tibetan Buddhism, they would say, spacious awareness pervades the body. Awareness is not inside the body. The body is inside awareness. So if somebody was to say that I am the one who is conscious, that would be putting consciousness inside the body. And he is saying the body is within the self, not the self within the body. Yeah? It's like a hint from Ramana. The body is within the self. Big S self is not in the body. Spacious awareness pervades the body and the environment. If there's no body here, if this body dies, yeah, awareness doesn't nothing happens to awareness. It's like open space, yeah? If you look around the room you're in, and if you take all the furniture out, it's the same space. It doesn't change the space. Hi, Irene. It doesn't change the space, yeah? So the body is within the self. Awareness doesn't need us to exist. It is reality, yeah? The individuality needs awareness, because that would be the electrical current that lights everything up, in a way. Ah, right. So if big S self was in the body, then big S self would be reliant on the body. So when the body dies, awareness dies, essentially. But that's not the case, no. When the body and mind die, nothing happens to spacious awareness. Your true nature goes on. You would be considered the unborn, what doesn't get born and dies. So he is saying, and yet one thinks one is inside the inert body, like some spectator who supposes that the screen on which the picture is thrown is within the picture. So if you think about a movie screen, like if you go to a theater or something, so he's saying like a spectator supposes that the screen on which the picture is thrown is within the picture, rather than the picture being upon the screen. Yeah. So if you're watching even this on a computer or a phone or something, if you were to take the computer or the phone to be part of the picture, that the screen on which the picture is thrown is within the picture. That's amazing. Or if you go to a movie theater and you see all the images being thrown on the screen, yeah, the mistake would be to take that the screen is part of the images, rather than the images being thrown on the screen. This is like our nature. Images being put up on the screen of awareness, let's say. Yes. Beautiful. So the body is within the self. Self-pervading body and environment. Yeah. Everything is happening within awareness, let's say, or is pervaded by awareness. And yet one thinks one is inside the body. This would be the claustrophobia of individuality, or the myopic view of individuality. One thinks one is inside this body. That existence is super closed in and claustrophobic and divided from the rest of the world, yeah? Yeah. And then if you're inside this body is taken to be yours, obviously, if you're inside of it. Whatever the body presents is personal. So now it has to be fixed or changed or modified or bettered or improved or whatever's going on, yeah? And then whatever thoughts come up seemingly inside this body are taken to be your thoughts. This is the myopic view, or the singular view that's taken. Because the head really only has one view. The body only has one view. Despite the fact that outcomes are endless, the head really only sticks you in the one story of itself. So one thinks one is inside the inert body, like some spectator who supposes that the screen on which the picture is thrown is within the picture. Great. I'm going to go on to this next one here. Verse 4. Does an ornament of gold exist apart from the gold? This is like, comes up in Advaita quite a bit, this kind of example. Can the body exist apart from the self? So does an ornament of gold exist apart from the gold? So in like old stories, they would say if you take a gold earring and you melt it, can you pull the earringness apart away from the gold? Yeah. No, because the idea of earring is given the shape, but it's gold. Yeah. So does an ornament of gold exist apart from gold? It can't, yes? Can the body exist apart from self? Obviously it cannot. Yeah. So when they take gold and they make it into an earring, now it's an earring. This is the label that's put on it. But that earring cannot exist apart from the gold that it's made out of. You understand? So the body cannot exist. I mean, it's a non-existent thing, but it cannot arise apart from the self. Yeah? All of this phenomenal world cannot happen without the space in which it's happening, in a way you could put it. Without the space in which it's happening, none of this can happen. All of this world relies on the space in which it's happening. Just the same way as the earring relies on the gold of which it's made of. You take the gold out of it, the whole thing is gone, yeah? So then he says, the ignorant one thinks I am the body. The ignorant one thinks I am the body. The enlightened one thinks I am the self, the big S self. Because the earring that's made of gold comes and goes. It doesn't have any permanent existence. Yes, it's coming and going. And that happens with jewelry. That's why jewelers do. They take one piece of jewelry, they melt it down, they make another one, yes? But it's still made of gold. So there's a basis that's going on. There's a spaciousness which pervades our experience as an individual. And it's an experience of an individual because there is no individual. There's a space that pervades the individual and everything else. Or the sense of individuality, let's say, and everything else. You are that space. Now the head cannot become space. Yeah? The mental system is form. Thoughts are forms. The body is form. It's not going to become formless. What you are is formless now before it. Always. As he says in the first part, one ever is the self. One ever is the spacious awareness in which all the coming and going of form happens. The making of gold, the burning down of gold, this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the thinking, the relationships, that all comes and goes in the space of what you are, which would be the ever-present. So the body, this form, cannot exist without the presence of that space. Because the space is like the ground of being on which everything comes and goes through, yeah? It's like fish in a fish tank swim through a fish tank. They don't see the water, but the water is always there that they come and go through. You see, the water is there. It's like this in a way. So then in the fifth part of this, he says, the self alone, big S self, the soul reality. That's quite important. The soul reality. Because the mental system is constantly suggesting that it is reality. Is it not? Is your head, when it's suggesting something is going on, is it not taking itself as 100% truth in that? Yeah? I mean, that is my experience of the mental system. When it's suggesting something's going on, it's completely convinced that it is reality in that moment. That it has an independent existence, which is permanent, and it knows the answer to what's going on. As if it's like the pinnacle of understanding, this mental system. It really knows. Yes? So the head is taking itself to be the sole reality. You're not doing that movement, by the way. That's a mechanical movement. Yeah, it's a habit pattern. It's like one of the limitations or the bindings of what the head is or does. It is taking itself to be the absolute. But verse 5 here from Ramana says, the self alone, big S self, is the sole reality, exists forever. So what else in your experience exists forever? The eyes don't exist forever because they close, so you must not be the eyes, yeah. The ears don't exist forever. Forever. I mean, they die at some point, but you can close them and move them. They don't have existence forever. The thoughts obviously don't exist forever. The thoughts are dying when the body dies, yeah. The self alone, the sole reality, meaning the only reality, despite the fact that our heads are constantly saying it is reality, exists forever. So, one ever is the self, is what we started with. Ever. One ever is the self. Always is the self. Big S self, because we're reading Ramana Maharshi. So, your true nature, you are always this. And then the self alone, which he would say you are, one ever is the sole reality. So if spacious awareness, for lack of a better term, if what you are is the sole reality, then the real question is, what is everything else? Because if what you are ever, forever, is the sole reality, if that ground of being is the sole reality, the real question is, what is everything else? Because you as the sole reality is done deal. Yeah, as far as the logic of Advaita goes. So, what is everything else? Because if something is the sole reality, as he says, exists forever, yeah, then there's a lot of coming and going, which obviously is not reality and does not exist forever. So we could say is unreality, meaning it has no independent existence and is not a permanent independent thing. What would be that? The idea of J would be exactly that. Would be the unreality. Yes? So trying to change what is not reality into reality will never work because it cannot become reality. The idea of J cannot become a permanent, existing, ever-existent thing because there already is a sole reality. The self alone exists forever, and one, meaning you, are that. Yeah. And then the rest is appearing and disappearing within this reality, including the idea of J, or the idea of you, is coming and going within that reality. Now the thing to know is that what's coming and going, the mental system is taking itself to be the sole reality, which actually, no problem. Let it take itself on. But if you're identified as it, yes, if you're being hypnotized, if you're being hypnotized into the idea of being the sole reality by the head, that the body is the sole reality, that gets very uncomfortable because it's a misunderstanding. So the head is taking itself to be the sole reality, but guess what? It's a completely self-centered system. So then you get stuck in self-centeredness, which would put you in the stance of thisness and then otherness. And that is an uncomfortable stance. Yeah. Yes. And then there's a bunch of moving around trying to make this body into a not body, or trying to get out of self, small s self in this case, like recovery, trying to get out of individuality as an individual. And that doesn't work. Like that's a saying in recovery. Self can't get out of self. Yeah. So individuality cannot become non-individual, or the sense, I should say, of individuality cannot become anything else but the sense of individuality. That's its nature. The body cannot become a not body. Which is why negation and self-inquiry are what Ramana would say. Surrender and self-inquiry or negation would be the only paths to take, because anything else is reinforcing that identification with the sense of individuality. And that sense of individuality, let's say the body, is trying to become the soul reality. And it can't be, because there already is a soul reality. And this is not it. Yeah? This body is not the soul reality. It comes and goes within a soul reality. Ah, great. Are there any questions? Please type something in if you'd like. So again, this is the 5 verses on the self, big S self. It's kind of hard to read Ramana in a way, because in recovery, self is the body. It's the sense of individuality, and for Ramana, self is reality. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a bit hard to read because I don't want to get people confused. I try to keep saying big S and small s, but whatever. Hopefully something comes through. Yeah. So the 5 verses are apparently the last thing Ramana wrote. And yeah, I've always liked that. It's like it dropped like hits or slaps in the face in a way from these readings. That's why I share them, because there's so much in them. Yeah, even little sayings. Like another one that has always got me is Nisargadatta said this, but I think it came from Huang Po in Chan. What is being perceived is not what is perceiving. So it's kind of like what we were just saying. If you are reality, now done, the soul reality, that is your nature, then everything that you can be aware of must be unreality, or must be coming and going. Yeah? So if something can come and go, it has 2 faces, essentially. It's dualistic, yeah, if it can come and go. Your thoughts can be good and they can be bad, essentially. So dualistic. What is seeing those thoughts? I am seeing those thoughts. So there's a seer and a seen. You're neither of those. That would be another duality. Yeah, so this is one way to see it. Now you can go with the way Ramana is saying, the soul reality exists alone and you are forever that. So whatever's coming and going, whatever is not permanent, would be negated as what you're not. And then there you are, yes? So when the head comes up, you know that that's not a permanent movement, obviously. You can inquire into that. Who does that arise to? You step back before it, I. Now the sense of I also comes and goes, no? The thought I comes and goes. The head is constantly putting you there as the doer or the done to, in the form of I, me. It's constantly doing that. And because it's so incessant and repetitive, there's a sense that you're really actually there. Yeah, there's no need to say, I don't feel that, or I don't sense that, or, oh, I should be super depressed because I have a sense of individuality. There's a sense of individuality. It's just, it's not your true nature, is what this is saying, yeah? But there's a sense. So it's like in recovery, tell the truth. There's a sense of individuality. And here that gets negated. It does not get reinforced because it's a false sense of individuality. So if you are ever the sole reality, then whatever else is going on must not be unreality. It must be in the game of relativity, essentially. And if you're living in the game of relativity, there's seemingly a lot of ups and downs within that game, yeah? There's a lot of highs and lows. Well, for some of us, those highs and lows get super uncomfortable. And then we try to get out of unreality as unreality. Or we try to become a not body as a body. And the body can't do that because it's limited to its form. It's not going to become formless. So if you are ever the sole reality, then what is then looking to find reality or become reality must actually be unreality. And that unreality cannot become reality. Why? Because you already are a reality. Yeah. Okay. So duality is arising in what we would call non-duality, but non-duality is not a thing, nor is duality really. They're just ideas. Yes? But the dualistic experience is arising in the non-dualistic beingness of what you are. So you could look at it that way, or the perceived is not what is perceiving. Now that one from Huang Po has slapped me around a lot. Because if you sit down and you think or look at this situation of the body and mind, what is being perceived is not what is perceiving. So right away you can perceive your eyes. You can sense your eyes. So that must be not what is perceiving, yes? You can perceive your ears. You can feel your ears on the side of your head. Those are perceived. So that's not what is perceiving. So essentially you can give up on both of those. You can perceive your body. So obviously that's not what is perceiving. You can perceive your thoughts. So obviously that's not what is perceiving because it's being perceived. And then who sees your thoughts? I do. You can perceive that I. Yeah? Might come up as like a sense in a way, like a feeling or an idea or both. But you can perceive that, yes? So what is being perceived is not what is perceiving. And then one of the beauties of the mental system is it overplays its hand. So now if you go up to your head and you look at the mental system, it's in a way the complete opposite. Because the head is perceiving. Yeah? Or sorry, the mental system is you can perceive that. Yet look at what it's saying. It's saying that what is being perceived, the mental system, is what is perceiving. Yeah? Your experience puts forth that the eyes are perceiving. The head would be the sole perceiving of what's going on. The sole interpreting of what's going on. So the head is playing God with life, essentially. It is arranging and telling you everything that's going on. So it does not see that it is not what is perceived. It does not see that it's not the ultimate or absolute perceiving. You can perceive the mental system. So this is the thing. If you're identified with the mental system, because it's taking itself to be the absolute, it's playing God with you, essentially. It's taking awareness, which is wide open, vast. It's seemingly putting it in this body, tying it to the mental system and the senses, and then there you are. Yeah? Oh, that's great. That's really great to see that. This is what happens. There's wide open awareness, and then the head comes up with the idea of you. It's like Ramana Maharshi would say, presupposing the existence of a non-existent thing, which is the idea of you and me. So the idea of me is a non-existent thing, but the mental system, the head, already has you there as a thing. Now that's a misunderstanding, but it's what the head is doing. Yes? So presupposing, the head has you here as a body. Great. So if you go with that, open, vast awareness, no problem, untouched by any of the contents of experience, is now taken and sucked into a body and sucked under now the influence or the motivation of this mental system in this head and that one in your head. Yes? Good. So now if you're taking yourself to be that non-existent I, you are now being driven by this mental system, no matter what it says, let's say. But that mental system can be perceived. It is not the absolute that it's taking itself to be. You can see it, not with the eyes. There's a seeing of it. Yeah? And you can see the head claim what's going on. When you're listening to me talk, you can see your head either going, I understand that, or I don't understand what he's saying. Yes? If you can perceive that, then it's not what is perceiving, meaning it's not you. This is the head claiming and then placing a you there. So you can see the head going, I don't understand what this guy's talking about. He's probably out of his mind. Yeah. Or I totally understand what this guy's talking about. Yeah. Both of those are not you. So in a way, it doesn't matter if you get this or don't get this. Neither of those are you. Yeah? You sit before that, disentangled from it. Because the thing is, if you think you get this message, then tomorrow you're going to be the one who doesn't get it. And guess what happens with that? Now you failed and you feel like you suffered, and then you get it, and then you don't get it. And then but you can perceive that happening. You can perceive it. And the perceiving is before what is perceived. So as Ramana says, the perceiving is you are ever that. You are ever the self. Everything else comes and goes, left and right, up and down within that. Yeah. And then when you see that your head is trying to grab this, you can perceive that. And then you can also see your head come up and go, I'm the one seeing that thinking. You can perceive that as well. The sense of individuality can be perceived. And there you go. This is the thing. You are what you're looking for. Yeah. Ah. That's the relief. No matter what your head presents you, it ain't you. So it doesn't matter what it presents. Yeah, you are disentangled from it. I'm just going to read this question quick. How can one make life decisions when there are other people's perceptions of themselves involved in addition to ours? How can one make life decisions when there are other people's perceptions of themselves involved in addition to ours? So, how can one make life decisions? Well, Irene, there would be no, I don't know if you were here earlier when I was talking about doership. Yeah, but in not to message, there's no doer thereof. Yeah, in reality, there's no doer. So, the idea that you are the one making life decisions would be a misunderstanding in the logic of not to, because there is no doer. So what is making life decisions is the mental system, and it's making life decisions based on its past experience, because that's the only thing the mental system can know, is its past, is memory, essentially. So life decisions are being made on memory. Yeah. So when there are other people's perceptions of themselves involved in addition to ours, all of that is of the mental system. Yes? There's no doer thereof. You're not making life decisions. There's life decisions being made based on past information. This is the mental system doing this, yeah? So when that comes up, I would be meeting that personally with negation, because that is not your nature, no? Yeah. There's a sense that you're making life decisions because you're identified with the body, you see? But there's no doer there making life decisions. Decisions are being made by the mental system, whether you want them to be made or not. Now that might feel like you're doing it, but really you're just identified with the process of it. But there's no individual doer thereof. Yeah. So other people's perceptions of you and your perceptions of yourself both come back to the sense of you, yeah? They both come back to the Irene-ness of it. So this is inquiring into who are you? Who is that I, or who is the Irene that perceptions are made of? And who is the one making perceptions of themselves? Now, you do highlight something very interesting in the mental system. Sometimes you're thinking about yourself, yeah? and then sometimes you're being thought about. Have you ever noticed this? Sometimes you're thinking about actions from the past. So in a way you're being thought about. And then sometimes you're thinking like forward in a way. How would I say that? I'm just trying to highlight this duality that happens in the head. Sometimes you're being thought about and sometimes you're thinking about. Yeah? So this is not two, but right there your head presents itself in all of its glory as two. You see? Because if you're the one making life decisions, there's a good decision and a bad decision. So there's duality right there. Again. So if these talks do anything, they're just pointing to the mental system and how it's pulling us out of what we are into that sense of individuality. Well, there's no doer thereof. You are ever the self, as Ramana says. Yes? So what is making decisions or not making decisions? Both would be not you. And then there's people's perceptions of this body, and then this body has perceptions of people. So that's another duality, so neither of those would be your nature. Yeah? If anybody else has questions, or Irene, you have more, just write them in the thing there. Yeah. So really, negation can meet whatever arises in your experience. And it doesn't take too long before you stop asking questions in a way, because you see that what's wondering or what's asking questions is the mental system. Yeah. Now the mental system keeps going. The music of life keeps playing. It's just that you stop identifying as the lead violinist, as the great decision maker, or the great one who people don't like or they love, or the one who hates everybody or loves everybody. Yes, the one, being the lead violinist, the conductor of the music in a way. Yeah, you see that is a misidentification. You lose faith in that mental system that's producing all of this left and right, and then there you are. This is the beauty of this thing. Huh? So I hope that helps, Irene. But the question points towards doer, yeah? Being the center of life in a way. It's like all the planets roll around one other planet or something, yeah? What do they fly around the sun or something, I think. Yeah? So we take ourselves to be the sun. Now you are the light, yeah? You are the light, but what hears that right now is the body. And then the body goes, I am the light of all lights. And that is not the case. Because it can be perceived. Nah. Or like Chan listening practices. What can be heard is not what's hearing. You can hear the eyes. You can hear the ears. Yeah. You can't obviously hear the eyes with your ears, but you can sense them. So they're heard. You can hear the head. You can hear the sense of individuality be claimed by the individual. Be claimed by the head. You can hear all of this movement going on all the time, no? So it must not be what's hearing.